Story time. I think I was 6 or 7 years old the first time I went to the Center of Science and Industry. If you've never been to good old COSI, it's basically a big, interactive children's museum in central Ohio focused on different fields of science. There's a space exhibit, an area all about water, an exhibit focused on genetics, psychology, and human biology. Anyway, I remember going with my aunt and spending a good 20 or 30 minutes in each of the various attractions, and I was really pushing the limited time that we had there. I'm pretty sure that the place closes at 5 on Sundays, and we got there about noon, so go do some math on that. I was kind of being rushed as an excited child who wanted to experience everything on the first go. The last exhibit we saw, which I only noticed as we were about to leave, was one that was forming a short line, something that none of the other attractions had. As soon as I saw it, I just had to know what was waiting on the other side of the entrance, which looked super out of place. It was bordered by rocks and foliage, and it possessed a very distinct 1930s aesthetic that stood out against the sterile white walls of the rest of the museum. It was that day that I got to experience Adventure in the Valley of the Unknown, more commonly known as Adventure to locals. And I'm not sure what my rock candy rattled mind expected would be in there, but oh my god, did I get way more than I bargained for.
Do you ever wish your life was more like an Indiana Jones movie? Since you live here in Central Ohio, it's possible. Experience Columbus has a series of tours available at all times, but perfect for large groups, especially during the holiday season.
Because this attraction was so expensive to run, I think it was usually only open seasonally or during peak hours, and it was located just beyond a rolling door that could be pulled down at any time. So I'm thinking about it for a while, but the next time that I go to COSI, the doors pulled down, and as far as I knew, it just didn't exist. I honestly thought it was a dream that I had for the longest time. I mean, the artificial night sky, the colorful maze, the Aztec-inspired society, the vague Disney-ish songs and singing animatronics. It definitely sounded like something a 7-year-old might dream up. And I was content with this theory until a few years later, and my friend Nick is going off about this exhibit with talking sculptures, and I'm like, so you saw them too? Adventure, as an attraction in a science museum, is a little hard to explain. It first opened in 1999 and was basically an alternate reality game before alternate reality games caught on and were, you know, an established thing. On the surface, it was a 20 to 30 minute puzzle-based first-person experience that casts you, the visitor, as an explorer of an archaeological site. It sounds simple on the surface, but then you realize that they wrote their own language that you could decode. There was lore and backstory written for this that could be uncovered, along with letters and diary entries from fellow adventurers, levels of gameplay that would take days to solve on average. And what is this doing in a children's science museum? Well, upon talking to COSI themselves, Adventure had a few takeaways in mind. The main one was encouraging critical thinking and problem solving, as well as community-driven innovation through the exhibit's emphasis on teamwork. I'll put up the main goals on screen right now for anyone who's really interested in COSI's intentions with the attraction, but that's hardly the reason that I'm here today. The thing about Adventure, especially in the early 2000s, was that for as well received as it was, and for how many people were dedicated to figuring out the mysteries, there was never really a place where you could go for answers other than the exhibit itself. I specifically remember trying to Google it as a small child, and was absolutely baffled at the lack of information I could find that wasn't just basic stuff that you could get from COSI itself. Over the years, some online discussion has come up, but there hasn't really been a full, in-depth breakdown and analysis of the experience. So, I'm gonna fill that niche, as well as answer some questions that I've had since I was 7. I experienced Adventure a total of 5 times. 2 were during normal visiting hours, one when I was 7 and the other when I was in primary school, whereas the other 3 were part of my COSI camp experience when I was 13, I think. This involved going to COSI during the summer, usually about an hour before opening and staying past closing. The best part about this was getting to see a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that regular visitors wouldn't normally have access to. One of the privileges for our group was being allowed to see Adventure while it was closed. What we ended up doing was going through the regular experience on one day, and then for 2 other half-days we spent our time trying to solve level 2. Despite this, I still had to do a lot of research on this exhibit to fill in the gaps. So, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'd like to take this moment to thank a few beautiful people. First up, there's the Explorer Society on Facebook, Fans of Adventure, where I got most of my photos. There's the Adventure subreddit, which had a lot of resources available, along with open discussion of puzzles and the story. Oh, and COSI themselves, as they were more than happy to let me in on some of their secrets via email. Extra special thanks to the man, the myth, the legend, Skyhawk Illusions on Reddit, referred to multiple times in this video as Sean Skyhawk. This absolute mad lad gave me a bunch of information regarding level 2, including a full walkthrough. They have custom fonts for all the languages of this exhibit, and if it weren't for them, I probably wouldn't be able to make this video. I cannot overstate how much they helped me. Oh, and of course, shout out to Roto. They're the design firm responsible for the attraction itself. Thanks a million for creating something so unique and memorable, and I hope to see more from you in the future. With that, buckle up and let's dive into COSI's Adventure, the best attraction you've never heard of. Before we get into the exhibit itself, let's talk lore. In my email correspondence with COSI, they were super generous and gave me the entire backstory of the Explorer Society, which was required reading for anyone working the Adventure exhibit. This society was the group of archaeologists and scientists that discovered the Valley of the Unknown, the main setting of the exhibit. If you're familiar with the Sea Society of Disney Park lore, it's kind of similar but a little darker. The backstory goes a little something like this. The Explorer Society was started up in 1891 by Eleanor McSweeney, a wealthy antiques collector, and Herman Langley, a journalist and esteemed globetrotter. The headquarters was established in San Francisco and quickly became known for its eccentric residents and activities, with the most notable being lectures given by one Professor James Morrissey on necromancy and the occult. The group quickly amassed some 150 members, all of which were brought in due to their contributions to the field of exploration, and the Painted Lady house that it occupied became home for any members visiting the area, and anyone who had been evicted from their previous homes, all of whom were treated like royalty by the head matron, Ingrid Snodgrass. However, due to an endorsement of an attempt at commercial submarine transportation, which resulted in the deaths of its esteemed inventor and his apprentice, coupled with rumors of Chinese funding, the society drew in harsh criticism. Bad press from this event, declining enthusiasm from members, and a growing debate on the merits of colonial doctrine led to decreased activity from the Explorer Society, and only a few members keeping their active status. From here, the society went mostly underground until 1923, following Howard Carter's discovery of King Tut's tomb. After this, the society was re-established, this time with its headquarters in the Bowery district of New York. This was funded by Ingrid's daughter Ava, with goals of making expeditions similar to that of Carter's. From here, plans were made for a society venture to Egypt in hopes of finding the next greatest discovery. The first was cancelled due to supply shortages, but several expeditions to Northeast Africa were still conducted with some success. From here, the society expanded its reach, acquiring a more international focus through inducting more members outside of Western and European territories, and opening up new offices in London and Hong Kong. Over the next decade, 40 expeditions were made to places like India, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Venezuela, the Ivory Coast of Africa, and the North Sea, but the depression of the 1930s postponed trips to Asia and the South Pacific. Still, this didn't kill the Explorer Society. In 1936, the Society announced their plans of conducting a nautical survey of the South Pacific. Under the leadership of Colonel Humbert Pennymell, the expedition began on Easter Sunday of the same year. This had some moderate success in the early months of the voyage, such as the discovery of the green-finned yellow-finned tuna, but not much else for the eager explorers. After becoming adrift near the islands of Polynesia in October of 1937, they found themselves in the midst of a monsoon. Days later, they washed ashore on an unnamed island with their ship wrecked and means of communication lost. They weren't found until February 21st, when the crew spotted a ship transporting raccoon pelts to Saigon. Once the destination was reached in March, this allowed Colonel Pennymill to communicate to the Hong Kong office that they had indeed found something. The Valley of the Unknown. Excavation of this site began on June 21st, 1938, when 15 were sent to Base Camp 41, but this number quickly grew to 36 as more interested parties became involved. This led to the discovery of the Temple of Inspiration, the Maze of Reason, the Cavern of Perseverance, and most mysteriously, the Observatory. This was locked by a nigh-impervious system, and Ava vowed she'd find the secrets it held if it killed her. On August 4th of 1939, her quest to open the observatory doors finally took her life. Following the discovery of the Well of Questions, Ava led a party of intrepid adventurers on the 29th of July, and they found themselves hopelessly lost. When food rations were depleted, the party had to resort to cannibalism. Before this, though, Ava stumbled upon what she believed would be the key to opening the observatory doors, and jotted it down in her journal. The bodies of her and her crewmate were found 2 weeks later, along with the information that could lead to the opening of the observatory through the awakening of spirits. This is where you come in. Now we can talk about the main experience of adventure proper, commonly referred to as Level 1. This was the scripted experience in which you and a group would go through the exhibit and awaken 4 corresponding spirits. Plunk, the Spirit of Questions, Lalala, the Spirit of Inspiration, Brazoa, the Spirit of Reason, and Tempoa, the Spirit of Perseverance. These spirits would aid you in your quest for the treasure of knowledge in the observatory, and I'm just realizing that they were probably named according to the steps of the scientific method. Ask a question, design an experiment based on a hypothesis, collect and analyze data, repeat experiment, and obtain and share results, i.e. knowledge. It might be a bit of a stretch, but if I'm right, I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, after you're done waiting in the line outside, you're led into Outpost 41, where a member of the famed Explorer Society shows you an introductory video that gives you a little bit of lore that I explained before. Some of the script is lost, and COSI didn't have any shareable versions of this video, but this segment still remains.
Members of the Explorer Society, led by the intrepid adventurer Colonel H.M. Pennymill, have made a remarkable discovery: the Valley of the Unknown. Long believed to be only a myth, the Valley of the Unknown is very much a real place. Here, time and elements have covered what must be taken centuries to construct. Already, the Explorer Society has located a crumbling stone maze, a cavern filled with catacombs, and a lush temple complex. However, the most amazing of these discoveries has to be the towering observatory, rumored to contain the treasure of knowledge. The observatory is a focus for all explorers. Unfortunately, the observatory remains locked, and with it, the treasure of knowledge. Certainly, whoever finds the means to enter the observatory will be among the most celebrated of explorers.
After the video was done, your tour guide would help you catch up on the Society's most recent discoveries, putting heavy emphasis on the 4 strange statues and their possible connection to the observatory, which, again, no one has been able to open. They also read you Ava's last diary entry, which goes like this.
January 28th, 1938. Oh, dearest diary, we are now exploring the Well of Questions. It is a very curious place. Within the well are skeletal remains of this ancient civilization. Upon the wall there are 3 identical bronze statues. They look like this. Near each of these statues, I have found these 3 primitive animal symbols. What could this mean? I find these clues intriguing. Could these symbols somehow hold the key to the treasure of knowledge? I hypothesize that these animal symbols will somehow awaken the stone statues, and it will be they who give us the key to the observatory.
The main takeaway from this passage is a code made up of 3 animal symbols, which is then entered into a keypad and awakens the spirit of the statue before you.
Who dares awaken me? Who disturbs the tranquility of the mighty Plunk?
It was Haley!
Spirit of questions.
Haley did it!
This is Plunk. They are the spirit of questions, and probably my personal favorite. I just love their little eyebrows and tiny gremlin hands. Also, they sound so happy to see you.
Oh, it's you! And you want me to help you in your search for knowledge?
Seriously, they are the best. Anyway, Plunk is here to give you your first step on your journey. If you're looking for answers, ask a question, and they sing a little song to help you remember. And believe me, you will remember. If you're anything like me, this song will be stuck in your head until you perish.
Long before you can find out, you gotta wonder what's it all about. You gotta ask some questions. You gotta ask some questions. You gotta ask some questions.
So, if you reach the observatory,
What should you do?
to unlock the door, you need a secret code comprised of 4 symbols, each of which will be rewarded to you by another one of the aforementioned spirits, once they're awakened, of course. Plunk explains it like this.
The observatory gate will open wide if you know the code for getting inside. It's made up of pieces, a total of 4. Look here at the first. Now find 3 more. If you wonder where to find the others, just look for my spirit sister and brothers. They are somewhere waiting for you. In the maze, the temple, and the cavern too. When you add their pieces to the one I've revealed, the observatory will be unsealed. You will enter through its doors, and the treasure of knowledge will at last be yours.
Your mission is simple. Navigate the Valley of the Unknown, find the symbols to awaken the spirits, obtain the rest of their secret code, and open the observatory where the treasure of knowledge awaits. After you leave Outpost 41, the valley is yours to explore however you want. While awakening the spirits provided a somewhat linear framework, the main area of adventure was yours to traverse at your own pace, and there's a lot to look at. Much like the rest of COSI, there are mini activities, documents to read, secrets to dig up. The details put into this exhibit were on the same level as Disney attractions, if you can believe it. There are also a bunch of smaller areas between the main ones that, while mostly irrelevant to level 1, are fun to go through and gave the exhibit some more flavor. There's the Well of Questions, which is where Plunk was recovered in the lore of the attraction. But there's also a burial chamber with a sarcophagus, and there's also the main one I remember, the King's Throne Room. This was the room where the floor was tilted at an angle which gave it a sort of disorienting illusion. While you could wander to your heart's content, there are 3 major areas, each with their own respective puzzles that need to be solved in order to get the proper animal symbols. The spirits can be awakened in any order, but we're going to go in the order that I performed when I was first exploring the attraction. So, let's talk about the Temple of Inspiration. Here, a number of rituals must be performed in order to obtain the code to awaken the spirit, with each respective puzzle being marked by the face of the temple statue. They all involve some sort of abstract creative thinking, with your tour guide offering the advice of think like a child. The first ritual that I specifically remember completing was in a location called the Chamber of the Unseen. This involved a plaque on the wall with a hidden symbol that was revealed when the special light was shined on it. I initially thought that this squid was painted with some sort of ultraviolet reactive paint, but it turns out this is a lot more with the ways that our eyes process color. The photos we have of this area don't show it, probably because the flash was on, but the chamber is lit with a yellow light that causes a glyph on the wall to appear invisible, but the light of a white LED allows it to be seen, giving you the first animal that you need to awaken the spirit, a squid. Next up is the Shrine of Mystery, which was a hole in the wall of the temple with an image of the spirit at the far end. As a 7-year-old, the last thing I wanted to do was reach my hand into a stone hole roughly the length of my arm, so I kept trying to find another way to access this image. Since it was semi-transparent and looked like it was a hologram, I thought I was supposed to be looking for where it was being projected from, until our group's guide said something like, "Hey, have you tried touching it?" I said something like, no, it's clearly not there, I can't touch it, my hand would just pass through. But as it turns out, yeah, that's the solution. You reach into the hole and the spectral face disappears and reveals lights in the shape of a butterfly. I remember it being animated with its wings flapping, but Sean says he remembers it being static. Either way, that's symbol 2 of 3. This last one threw me for a loop, but hanging from an archway adjacent to the temple is the Spire of Transformation, and the key to completing the final ritual. This, on the surface, just looked like a weird piece of architectural theming, but its importance was hinted by another one of these golden faces, so I spent a while looking at this from every angle I could. I knew these red markings on the side had something to do with it, but my stupid self ended up overthinking it. I thought the lines were meant to be Roman numerals that were supposed to coincide with an animal on the code panel, but the answer is way simpler. The lines on the spire are part of an anamorphic image that can only be seen if you're standing directly under it, which, yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Anyway, this snake is the last symbol needed from the temple, so with all 3 glyphs from this section, you awaken Lalala, Spirit of Inspiration, who is an absolute queen.
I am Lalala, Spirit of Inspiration, and if it's knowledge you want to see, you must look at things a little differently. Oh yeah, be inspired, use your imagination.
I always thought she seemed really nice, but there was something vaguely threatening about her. I remember seeing this painting on the wall nearby and feeling really uncomfortable. This, as a 7-year-old, was my clue that there was a lot more to this exhibit than meets the eye. I mean, there were also corpses littered around the observatory, but let's not worry about that right now. Her message to you is to be inspired and look at things from different perspectives.
Little dog, listen to Lalala. Knock down the walls, unlock the locks. Do a little thinking outside the box.
After her song, she gives you her part of the observatory's combination, the same symbol as Plunk's. The next stop on your journey is the Maze of Reason. This was, obviously, a maze. A spirit statue is hidden inside, but even if he's the first thing you locate, you'll still need to navigate the rest of the maze in order to find the symbols needed to awaken him. This is probably the most straightforward segment of level 1, as the symbols are just out in the open to be obtained, each marked with a golden statue of the spirit in question. Also, it's not a very big maze, it takes up a pretty small portion of the attraction, but I enjoyed it for what it's worth, especially as a kid. The Maze of Reason is one of the areas that I remember the clearest, since part of the fun was making a mental map of the area, so it really stuck with me. There were no guides, no hints, just a warning at the entrance. It was another testament to how Adventure didn't really hold your hand and put its faith in you as the visitor to put everything together, even if it was far from the most difficult part of the experience. Anyway, you collect the symbols, a jackal, a monkey, and a lizard, and you awaken this guy. If you're wondering why this sole video of his song is so dark, it was part of the maze. I think the relative darkness in comparison to the rest of the attraction was an attempt to make it more difficult for kids. So, this is Brazoa, the Spirit of Reason, and his song is funky.
Use your head, whether round or flat. It's not sitting on your shoulders, just for holding up your hat.
He tells you that if you want to find the treasure of knowledge, you have to use your head, listen to your thoughts. Yeah, you get the picture. He gives you his part of the code, and you're already over halfway through level 1. The last stop on your journey is the Cavern of Perseverance, and probably the most hands-on section of this level with 3 main challenges. The tasks were reminiscent of some kind of Indiana Jones-style ruin, but less deadly, of course. The first puzzle I remember solving was the Gates of Doom, which is less of a puzzle and more of just entering the right combination on a couple of golden skulls. Basically, it's a hall divided into 4 chambers, and the skulls must be touched in the right order to open the doors at the same time. And it's super hard to explain if you're not actually in the same room as this puzzle. It's basically guesswork and memorization. Either way, once this task is completed, the first symbol, a rat, appears before you via a Pepper's Ghost illusion, which, if you're not familiar, is the same technique used to create the ghosts on Disney's Haunted Mansion. After that, you move on to the Eyes of Scorn. This is a scaled down, much more traversable version of every laser scene you've ever seen in an action movie, and that only made it cooler to me as a kid. It was actually pretty challenging, but once you make it through without triggering one of the lasers, the next symbol, the spider, is yours. The last feat that you need to complete is Simon, which is exactly what you think it would be. Jokes aside, Simon's challenge is, well, a game of Simon. He gives you a pattern of flashing lights, and you must input the same pattern by memory. We actually have his original soundboard, so I can give you a rough approximation of what this challenge looked like.
You stand before the challenge of Simon. Repeat the pattern of the glowing gems, and the animal symbol you seek shall appear. Prepare. You have 3. 2 more remain for your reward to be gained. 4 you have, 5 you need. Let the final challenge now proceed. The 5th is conquered. Your reward now appears.
With Simon's challenge completed, you obtain the last symbol needed to awaken the spirit of perseverance.
Tempoa, spirit of perseverance, don't be fooled by my appearance. Maybe me not smart, just keep on the block. Maybe me can be just rock, but me know one thing very clear. You want knowledge, that's clear.
This Yoda, Grover, Cookie Monster sound-alike is Tempoa, and his song is objectively the worst, but I can't help but love this optimistic birdhouse-shaped lad. He's here to tell you that you must keep trying and never give up on your search for knowledge.
Keep trying, yeah, keep trying. Pretty soon you'll see, you'll be just as smart as me. Keep trying, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying.
And, of course, he gives you the last symbol needed to open the observatory. Once you've gathered up all the pieces of the code, you open the observatory to obtain the treasure of knowledge. This was so satisfying to me as a kid. I remember punching in the code and feeling so accomplished. I felt like this would wrap up the whole experience and answer all of my questions, but, well, you'll see.
Welcome to the observatory. Remember me? Spirit of questions. I started you on your knowledge quest. Glad to see you pass the test. I said ask questions and you'll go far. You must have listened, for here you are.
You're wrong, Flunk. It wasn't questioning. It was what I, Priscilla, Spirit of Reason, said. They got here because they used their head. But you can say that cannot be. They listen to Tempoa, Spirit of Perseverance. Me! They can try. I'm trying. I'm trying.
Boys, you're all wrong. They got here because they heard my song. Was I, Lalala, Spirit of Inspiration, who said, be inspired. My fellow spirits, please, will make our guests feel ill at ease. They heeded us all, I think it's clear, or else they wouldn't have gotten here. They've worked hard, so to be fair, the treasure of knowledge we must now share. Listen closely and soon you'll know what it takes to make your knowledge grow.
Ooh, the spirits you have met.
Oh, really?
We're not as different as we seem.
Oh, really? When it comes to knowledge, you can bet. We work together like a team.
When you open the observatory, you get one more song from your spirit friends. Basically, each of the spirits try to take credit for helping you into the observatory, but they realize that you needed all of them to make it inside, and if you wish to seek knowledge, you're going to need all of the skills you learned to aid you on your journey.
Knowledge us. It's true. You need us all to discover something new. One or two of us won't do. You need us all, just like we need you. Look, you are next.
So ask questions, like I said.
Good question.
Oh, yes, and be inspired, my dear.
Now don't forget to use your head. And remember, gotta persevere! Ah!
When I was a small child, I thought this was some kind of metaphor, like, good job, Sonny, you did a thing, gold star, go out into the world and seek out more things to learn. However, as I said before, this is just level 1 of the adventure experience. Level 2 is where things start to get interesting. Unfortunately, though, that's all the time we have for today. I'm sorry, I know we still have to cover more Valley of the Unknown lore, the secret languages, and the current state of the exhibit, but I promise I will be back in part 2 to talk about all of this and more. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave me a like and let me know what you think about this ultra niche attraction. If you like my work, subscribe and check out my socials in the description. And if you're feeling particularly generous, you can donate to my Patreon. Big thanks to RetroSamus for providing voiceover for this video. Definitely check out his Twitch channel. And again, thank you Sean Skyhawk for being such a rad lad and helping me with the research portion of this video. I cannot thank you enough. Oh, and of course, thank you to my beautiful patrons, Sylvan, Praxis980, and Christine. And thank you for watching. I'll be back with more content very, very soon.